Hello everyone and welcome back to our English lesson. Today's lesson 2 of our diary entry and I'm very excited to begin together. I hope you enjoyed yesterday's lesson and you found the book really exciting. Today we are going to continue reading the book. You will need a pen or a pencil and your home learning book or a paper to write on. Make sure you still have yesterday's learning with you and your plan, as you will need to be putting a few other things onto your planning. Okay, let's get started with our writing task this week. First, we'll need to continue reading the story. So we got up to page 16 yesterday, and I will continue to read up to page 29. Make sure you have your fingers ready. Press pause if you still need to find the page, and then press play when you are ready. Suddenly, directly in front of him, little Billy saw the trunk of an enormous tree. This tree was different from the others because it had branches hanging down very low. While still running, he made a frantic jump for its lowest branch. He caught it and pulled himself up. Then he grabbed the next branch above his head and pulled himself up again. Then again and again, climbing higher and higher to get away from the terrible snorting, smoke-blowing, smelly-breathed beast down below. He stopped climbing only when he was too exhausted to climb any higher. He looked up, but even now he couldn't see the top of the giant tree. It seemed to go on forever. He looked down. He couldn't see the ground either. He was in a world of green leaves and thick, smooth branches with no earth or sky in sight. The snorting, smelly, smoke-blowing beast was miles away down below somewhere. He couldn't even hear it anymore. Little Billy found a comfortable place where two big branches came together and he sat down to rest. For the moment, at any rate, he was safe. Then something very peculiar happened. There was a huge smooth branch very close to where little Billy was sitting, and he suddenly noticed that a small square patch of bark on this branch was beginning to move. It was a very small patch, about the size of a postage stamp, and the two sides of it seemed to be splitting down the middle and opening slightly outwards, like a pair of shutters on some tiny windows. Little Billy sat staring at this extraordinary thing, and all at once a strange, uncomfortable feeling came over him. It felt as though the tree he was sitting in and the green leaves all around him belonged to another world altogether, and that he was a trespasser who had no right to be where he was. He watched intently as the tiny shutters of tree bark opened wider and wider, and when they were fully open, they revealed a small squarish window set neatly in the curve of the big branch. There was some sort of a yellowish glow coming from deep inside the window. The very next thing little Billy saw was a tiny face at the window. It had appeared suddenly, from nowhere, and it was the face of an extremely old man with white hair. Little Billy could see this clearly, despite the fact that the whole of the tiny man's head was no larger than a pea. This ancient miniature face was staring straight at little Billy with the most severe expression on it. The skin on the face was deeply wrinkled all over, but the eyes were as bright as two stars. Now something even more peculiar began to happen. All around him, not only on the huge main trunk of the tree, but also in all the big branches that grew out of it, other tiny windows were opening and tiny faces were peering out. Some of these faces belonged to men, and others were clearly women. Here and there the head of a child was seen peering over a windowsill. The heads of these children were no larger than the heads of matchsticks. In the end, there must have been more than 20 small windows all around where little Billy was sitting. And from each window these amazing little faces were peering out. No sound came from any of the watchers. The faces were silent, unmoving, almost ghost-like. Now the tiny old man in the window nearest to Billy seemed to be saying something, but his voice was so soft and whispery, little Billy had to lean right up close to catch his words. "You're in a bit of a twizzler, aren't you?" the voice was saying. "You can't go down again, because if you do, you'll be guzzled up at once. But you can't possibly sit up here forever either." I know, little Billy gasped. "Don't shout," the tiny man said. "I'm not shouting," little Billy said. "Talk softer," the tiny man said. "If you talk too loud, your voice will blow me away." But, who are you?" little Billy asked, taking care to speak very softly this time. "We are the Minpins," the tiny man said, "and we own this wood. I shall come closer, and then you will hear me better." The old Minpin climbed out of his window and walked straight down the big, steeply sloping branch, then up another branch until he found a place only a few inches from little Billy's face. It was amazing to see him walking up and down these almost vertical branches without the slightest trouble. It was like seeing someone walking up and down a wall. "How on earth do you do that?" little Billy asked. "Suction boots," the Minpin said. "We all wear them. You can't live in trees without suction boots." On his feet he was wearing tiny green boots, rather like miniature wellies. His clothes were curiously old-fashioned, mostly brown and black, the sort of thing people wore 200 or 300 years ago. Suddenly, all the other Minpins, men, women and children, were climbing out of their window and making their ways towards little Billy. Their suction boots seemed to allow them to walk up and down the steepest branches with the greatest ease, and some were even walking upside down underneath the branches. All of them were wearing these old-fashioned clothes from hundreds of years ago, and several had on very peculiar hats and bonnets. They stood or sat in groups on all the branches around little Billy, staring at him as though he was someone from outer space. "But do you all actually live inside the tree?" little Billy asked. The old Minpin said, "All the trees in this forest are hollow. Not just this one, but all of them. And inside them, thousands and thousands of Minpins are living. These great trees are filled with rooms and staircases, not just in the big main trunk, but in most of the other branches as well. This is a Minpin forest, and it's not the only one in England." "Could I peep inside?" little Billy said. Of course, the old Minpin said. "Put your eyes close to that window." He pointed to the one he had just come out of. Little Billy shifted his position and placed one eye right up against the square hole that was no bigger than a postage stamp. What he now saw was quite marvellous. He saw a room that was lit by a pale yellow light of some sort, and it was furnished with beautifully made miniature chairs and a table. To one side was a four-poster bed. It was like one of the rooms little Billy had once seen in the Queen's doll's house at Windsor Castle. "It's beautiful," little Billy said. "Are they all as lovely as this one?" "Most are smaller," the old Minpin said. "This one is very grand because I am the ruler of this tree. My name is Don Minnie. What is yours?" "Mine is Little Billy," little Billy said. "Greetings, Little Billy," Don Minnie said. "You are welcome to look into some of the other rooms if you wish. We are very proud of them." All the other Minpin families wanted to show little Billy their own rooms. They rushed about along the branches calling out, "Come and see mine! Please come and see mine!" Little Billy began climbing out and peeping into the tiny windows. Through one window he saw a bathroom, just like his own at home, only 1,000 times smaller. And through another he saw a classroom with lots of tiny desks and a blackboard at one end. In every room there was a stairway in one corner leading up to the room above. As little Billy went from window to window, the Minpins followed him, clustering round and smiling at this exclamation of wonder. "They're all absolutely marvellous," he said. "They're much nicer than our rooms at home." When the sightseeing tour was over, little Billy sat down again on a large branch and said to the whole company of Minpins, "Look, I've had a lovely time with you all, but how am I ever going to get home again? My mother'll be going crazy." "You can never get down from this tree," Don Minnie said. "I've told you that. If you're stupid enough to try, you'll be eaten up in 5 seconds. "Is it the Spittler?" little Billy asked. "Is it the terrible blood-suckling, teeth-buckling, stone-chuckling Spittler?" "I've never heard of any Spittler," Don Minnie said. "The one waiting for you down there is a fearsome Gruncher, the red-hot, smoke-belching Gruncher. He grunches up everything in the forest. That's why we have to live up here. He had grunched up hundreds of humans and literally millions of Minpins. What makes him so dangerous is his amazing and magical nose. His nose can smell out a human or a Minpin or any other animal from 10 miles away. Then he gallops towards it at terrific speed. He can never see anything in front of him because of all the smoke he belches out from his nose and mouth, but that doesn't bother him. His nose tells him exactly where to go." "Why does he blow out all that smoke?" little Billy asked. "Because he's got a red-hot fire in his belly," Don Minnie said. "The Gruncher likes his meat roasted, and the fire roasts it as it goes down." "Look," little Billy said, "Gruncher or no Gruncher, I've simply got to get home somehow. I'll have to make a dash for it." "Don't try it, I beg you," Don Minnie said. "The Gruncher knows you're up here. He's down there now waiting for you. Climb down a bit lower with me and I'll show you." Don Minnie walked easily straight down the side of a great tree trunk. Little Billy climbed carefully down after him from one branch to the next. Soon below them, they began to smell the revolting hot stench of the Gruncher's breath, and the orange-red smoke was now billowing into a lower branch in thick clouds. "What does he look like?" little Billy whispered. "Nobody knows," Don Minnie answered. "He makes so much steam and smoke, you can never see him. If you are behind him, you can sometimes catch a glimpse of little bits of him because all the smoke is being blown out in the front. Some Minpins say they have seen his back legs, huge and black and very hairy, shaped like lions' legs, but 10 times as big. And it is rumoured that his head is like an enormous crocodile's head, with rows and rows and rows of sharp pointed teeth. But nobody really knows. Mind you, he must have gigantic nose holes to be able to blow out all that smoke." They stayed still, listening, and they could hear the Gruncher paw the ground at the base of a tree with his giant hooves and snorting with greed. "He smells you," Don Minnie said. "He knows you aren't far away. He'll wait forever to get you now. He adores humans, and he doesn't catch them very often. Humans are like strawberries and cream to him. You see, for months he's been living on a diet of Minpins, and 1,000 Minpins is not even a snack for him. The brute is ravenous." Little Billy and Don Minnie climbed back up the tree to where all the other Minpins were gathered. They seemed glad to see little Billy come safely back. "Stay up here with us," they said to him. "We'll look after you." Just then, a lovely blue swallow alighted on the branch not far away. Sorry, I seem to have missed my place. And little Billy saw a mother Minpin and her 2 children climb quite casually onto the swallow's back. Then the swallow took off and flew away with its passenger seated comfortably between its wings. "Good heavens!" cried little Billy. Is that a special tame bird?" "Not at all," Don Minnie said. "We know all the birds. The birds are our friends. We use them all the time for going places. That lady is taking her children to see their grandmother, who lives in another forest about 50 miles away. They'll be there in less than an hour." "Can you talk to them?" little Billy asked. "To the birds, I mean." "Of course we can talk to them," Don Minnie said. "We can summon them at any time. we want if we have to go somewhere. How else would we get our supplies of food up here? The red-hot Gruncher makes it impossible for us to walk anywhere in the wood. Do the birds like doing this for you? Little Billy asked. They'll do anything for us, Don Minnie said. They love us, and we love them. We store food for them inside the trees so they don't starve when the icy cold winter comes along. Suddenly, all sorts of birds were alighting on the branches of the tree around where Little Billy was sitting, and the Minpins were climbing onto their backs in droves. Most of the Minpins had small sacks slung over their shoulders. At this time of the day, they go off to collect food, Don Minnie said. All the grown-ups have to help in getting food for the community. The population of each tree looks after itself. Our large trees are like your cities and towns, and the small trees are like your villages. It was an astonishing sight. Every kind of wonderful bird was flying in and perching on the branches of the great tree, and as soon as one landed, a Minpin would climb onto its back and off they would go. There were blackbirds and thrushes and skylarks and ravens and starlings and jays and magpies and many kinds of small finches. It was all very fast and well organised. Each bird seemed to know exactly which Minpin it was collecting, and each Minpin knew exactly which bird he or she had ordered for the morning. The birds are our cars, Don Minnie said to Little Billy. They are much nicer and they never crash. Soon all of the grown-up Minpins, excepting Don Minnie, had flown away on birds, and only the tiny children were left. Then the robins came in, and the children began climbing onto their backs and going for short flights. Don Minnie said to Little Billy, the children all practice learning to fly on robins. Robins are sensible and careful birds, and they love the little ones. Little Billy simply stood there staring. He could hardly believe what he was seeing. And you can see from the pictures page 28, got 2 more pages to go. While the children were practicing on the robins, Little Billy said to Don Minnie, is there no way in the world to get rid of that disgusting, red-hot, smoke-belching Gruncher down below? The only time a Gruncher dies, Don Minnie said, is if he falls into deep water. The water puts out the fire inside him, and then he's dead. The fire to a Gruncher is like the heart your heart is to you. Stop your heart, and you die at once. Put out the fire, and the Gruncher dies in 5 seconds. There's the only way to kill a Gruncher. Now hang on a minute. Little Billy said, is there by any chance a pond or something around here? There's a big lake on the far side of the forest, Don Minnie said. But who's going to entice the Gruncher into that? Not us, and certainly not you. He'd be on you before you got within 10 yards of him. But you did say the Gruncher can't see in front of him because of all the clouds of smoke he blows, Little Billy said. Quite true, Don Minnie said. But how is that going to help us? I don't think the Gruncher is ever going to fall into the lake. He never goes out of the forest. I think I know how to make him fall in, Little Billy said. What I want, Little Billy went on, is a bird that is big enough to carry me. Don Minnie thought about this for a while. Then he said, you are a very small boy, and because of that, I think a swan could carry you quite easily. Call up a swan, Little Billy said. Suddenly, there was a new authority in his voice. But I hope you're not going to do anything dangerous, Don Minnie cried. Listen carefully, Little Billy said. Because you must tell the swan exactly what he has to do, with me on his back you must fly down to the Gruncher. The Gruncher will smell me and know that I am very close, but he won't see me through all the steam and the smoke. He'll go mad trying to get at me. The swan will tantalize him by flying back and forth right in front of him. Is that possible? Quite possible, Don Minnie said, except that you might easily fall off. You've had no flying practice at all. I'll hang on somehow. Little Billy said Then the swan, keeping very low, will fly off through the forest with the ravenous Gruncher hot foot in pursuit. The swan will keep just ahead of the Gruncher all the time, driving him crazy with my smell. And in the end, the swan will fly straight over the big deep lake, and the Gruncher, now travelling at terrific speed, will follow right behind. Presto, he's in the lake. My boy, Don Minnie cried, you are a genius. Will you do that? Will you do it? Call up the swan, Little Billy ordered. Don Minnie turned to one of the robins which had just come back from a practice flight with a child Minpin on its back. Little Billy heard him talking to the robin in a kind of curious twitter. He couldn't understand a word of it. The robin nodded its head and flew off. Fantastic, we're going to stop there to continue our English lesson. Right, so for the rest of the day, what I want you to see is have a look at our model text again, but this time I've highlighted a different feature. So have a look at the features I've highlighted in red. What do you think we are going to be discussing today in our English lesson? Well done, everybody. We are going to be discussing informal writing. But first, what is a diary entry? So let's go back to what we spoke about yesterday. So when you write a diary entry, you are writing about a day in the life of a real person or character. The diary entry needs to sound as if the person or character has written it, so it needs to be written from their point of view. Do you remember the 3 features that we spoke about that we need to include in our diary entry? Can you write them down? Fantastic. Were you correct? The 3 features that we need are the date and the time, to be written in first person, and to use past tense. Excellent. Well done, year 3. Fantastic job. So our learning objective is to use informal language in our writing when we're writing our diary entry. So let's have a look at what informal language is. You've got 2 different languages. You've got formal language and informal. We're going to discuss both of them and then have a look at informal mostly. Formal language is used when we are communicating with people we don't know very well and want to impress or show respect to. For example, police officers or head teachers. Informal language is used when we are more relaxed and with people we know well. So for example, think about how you would answer to your best friend if they asked you what you did on the weekend. Now think about how would you answer that same question if it was your head teacher asking you. How would each answer be different? And that's what we're going to have a look about today. So we often use formal language when we write. However, there are times when writing can be informal, like when we're writing text messages, some emails, postcards, or even letters to our friends. And we use informal language more often when we speak. But then there are times there are times where it's expected that we speak formally. For example, when you do a classroom presentation or you're meeting someone new, you'd want to speak in a formal way and not informal. So here are 2 examples of a formal and an informal example. Formal example is when you are writing a letter. Dear Sir or Madam, I am writing to inform you that I have had a most enjoyable experience at your wonderful leisure establishment. I and my family enjoyed magnificent refreshments. Indeed, the cuisine was heavenly. Informal example is something you'd be more laid back about. Hi, Laura. I had a great time coming to stay with you last weekend. It was really cool meeting your family and awesome bunny rabbits. That pasta we had, amazing. Could you get your mum to send mine the recipe? That would be so wicked. Can you see the 2 different examples I've given you and what is different about them? Say it out loud. Fantastic. Which of these sentences is informal and how do you know? So a top tip is think Would I speak like this to my head teacher? And if you wouldn't, then it's likely that the sentence is informal. So I want you to press pause. You're going to write the 6 sentences down, and you are going to tick the ones you think are informal and cross the ones that are not informal. Press pause now. Fantastic job, year 3. Let's see how you got on. Number 1, that film was awesome. That's informal language. Number 2, I regret to inform you that the shopping centre is now closed. Fantastic and well done to you that wrote that it was not a informal language. Number 3, wanna go to the chippy? Well done to those of you that ticked it. It is informal, as it's something you would say to your best friend and not to a head teacher. And number 4, we were just hanging out at M's house. Also something you would not be saying in a formal way. Number 5, the manager requests that everyone arrive to the meeting at 9 a.m. prompt. That also was not informal. Fantastic job, everybody. Now I need you to help me improve my writing. So what I've written is some sentences, and I want you to choose the words that you think are that you could use in informal letter. So can you edit and refine my work? Press pause when you're starting, and you are going to write down the sentence, and you are choosing one of the words to write an informal letter. So dear or hello, sir or madam, which one would you use if you wanted to write an informal letter? Have a go at writing these. So press pause and press play when you are ready to continue. Press pause now. Fantastic job, year 3. Let's see how you got on. You choose the ones I've written in red. So you'd write, hello, sir or madam. I'm writing to let you know that a pizza I was unlucky enough to order at your restaurant was rubbish. The cheese was gross, the tomatoes rotten, and the base chewy as rubber. Never will I eat at your place again. Not only was the food yucky, okay, remember yucky is not something we put in a formal letter, but the waiting staff was boring and I had to wait 2 hours for my grub. I want a refund and to be paid now. Cheers. Well done to those of you that did that really well. Fantastic job. So let's go back to what we are going to be doing for today. So we are using the informal language in our writing. So your turn now to do your opening paragraph of your diary entry. So yesterday we planned it. You might want to go back to your plan, okay, and write down the event 2 part, because we've read that today's story. So we've read what the Gruncher might look like and what happened in that part, and keep your planning next to you. So when you are writing your paragraphs, you know what to do. So you need to include the 3 features that you need to write. So make sure you have your date, first person and past tense, always when you're writing. And don't forget to use informal writing. I'm going to bring back my example that we done at the beginning, so you have an idea of how to write it. So dear diary, Monday the 1st of February 2021. Dear diary, what an exciting but tiring day it has been. I have been on the most amazing adventure. I've never been so frightened in all of my life. This morning I decided to explore the big black secret wood called the Forest of Sin. So I quietly jumped out of my bedroom window and quickly ran out of the garden gate before my mum could see me. Yesterday, I was actually chased by a huge beast. That's right, chased. And I lived to tell the tale. Can you believe it? Little Billy, as everyone seems to want to say. Humph. Have a go at writing your own paragraph, so your opening paragraph of what has happened so far. and don't forget to use informal writing. So press pause now and start writing.